All right, we are on air. It is Thursday, April 5th. This is a meeting to check in on community outreach tasks for Backdrop CMS. According to our agenda, we are attempting to update the website to more effectively spread the word about Backdrop. And right now, the thing we're working on the website is our module themes and layouts pages. We have designs for those that were never fully implemented from the very beginning of backdropcms.org. And we also have a list of bug fixes and feature improvements that we want to include that'll make it easier for people to tell which modules are necessary for Backdrop, which modules are ready for Backdrop, and just the general state of, is it a good time right now to move my site over? We also are attempting to write regular blog posts on our website. I know Gregory wrote a fantastic blog post. I don't know if it's up yet. News. No, it's not published yet. So this was last week after the security release on Wednesday. Gregory came back at the end of the night, end of our night, which is the beginning of his morning, I suppose, jumped in the meeting and saw how everything went with the security release. And he wrote this fantastic blog post about it, which was great. But he mentioned the names of some of his employees at his company. And so he wanted to run it by them first before he published it. And so I read it and I'm like, it's amazing. I want to publish it. And he's like, wait, I need to talk to everyone. I was like, okay, that's fair. So he probably hasn't had a chance to do that yet, or maybe has and has forgotten, but I'll ping him and see where we are. But anyway, it was a great post specifically about the collaboration of the Drupal security team and the Backdrop security team, which I think is something that was something that maybe not everybody knows about how Backdrop does. So that would be great if we get that out. And then we also want to write a blog post about our joining the Software Freedom Conservancy. Nate also has a blog post he wants to write specifically about stepping down from the PMC and why he felt that was necessary, not only for the Software Freedom Conservancy, but for preventing our own conflicts of interest. I don't know if he's going to have any time to do that in the near future, maybe next week. So next week is DrupalCon, which means that everybody is going to be gone for a whole week, like most people in our community. And so that generally means that those of us who are not at DrupalCon have a lot of extra free time to do stuff that we might not normally get to do because everybody else is bothering us with work. So maybe I'll have time next week to write blog posts. So I'll ask him about that. And then we would like to get more community spotlights up there. I don't know where those stand currently, but whenever we can get going on those. Backdrop 110 is coming out May 15th. So we are now just over a month away. We've got code freeze in less than a month on the next version of Backdrop. So that's good. And we are open to anything else anyone wants to write for blog posts. So if anyone has any good ideas and thinks that it would make a good blog post and wants to put it on backdropcms.org, anybody with a user account should be able to create a blog post. It will by default be unpublished and be reviewed. We usually review everything once a week at least. So if you write something and you haven't heard from us for a week, that is the longest amount of time. Usually we publish things right away. Sometimes there will be a little back and forth on like, I fixed your punctuation, or can you use sentence case instead of every first word uppercase? But it's there's not a lot of changing that happens on that. So if you want to write something, feel free. Other things we're working on, we have a newsletter. We are currently waiting to send a newsletter until we get our Software Freedom Conservancy stuff in order. We did mention, I had a meeting with the Facet folks, and they said that if we had some great content that was specifically related to security, now would be a good time to send that because people are super interested in security based on last week's fix. So if we could come up with something that would be interesting that might tie in some of Gregory's blog posts with some information about how Backdrop handles security on its own, that could also be something we could write a blog post and send a newsletter about. But I did mention that I don't have time to work on that. So maybe they could help us, and they seemed open to helping us write news posts on or blog posts on stuff that if we had a good idea and could give them kind of a rough outline of what it should be, they could write it up for us. So that's also good to know we have that resource available. Let's see, other things that we can announce via the newsletter. Fastly has agreed to support Backdrop by providing CDN services for backdropcms.org and all backdropcms.org properties, including the API site, the forum site, the localized site, and anything that we may need in the future. So I've created an account specifically for Backdrop. I don't have that set up yet. But I think it would be great once we get that set up to write a blog post about it and send a newsletter about having Fastly support us as part of their open source and nonprofit initiative, which is great. We qualify for both those things now. And then, of course, when Backdrop 1.10 comes out, we'll probably wait 2 weeks, issue a bug fix release if necessary, and if not, send the newsletter anyway. So those are upcoming newsletter topics. I'm just going to put security in here because we might have something fun to say on security for possible newsletter ideas. All right, videos. So since our last outreach meeting, I did make my first YouTube video on Backdrop features that I love. And it was specifically about the little red dot in the admin bar because I use that all the time. And especially with the security release that came out last week, it was really convenient to log into a website and look at the bar, and I could tell whether I'd updated that website or not. Did a lot of websites, I might have checked some of them more than once. And so it was great to be like, oh, good, it's up to date. And then I could just log out. I didn't have to do anything else. When you see the red dot, you're like, oh, no, and doesn't got to pay attention to that problem. So that was great. Another video that I would really like to do is a quick one on how to create unbranded pages using the layout system. And this is something that Nate and I often do as part of our demo in a Backdrop CMS session that we often do at Drupal events because it's something that's really hard to do with Drupal. But I think it would also make a great 5-minute or less video just because it's something that people don't know you can do with content management systems in general. And I think it would be good to highlight that that's easy and fast to do in Backdrop. Anything else that people love to do about Backdrop could be a good video. I've gotten a couple of requests, I think the issue queue about doing like how to update a Pantheon site was something that people requested. I don't know if I wrote a video about that, but I do know that we have a dedicated page on backdropcms.org in the developer notes section that specifically targets that. But that would also be something that would be great to have a video on. And then somebody also asked for help how to port tests. Tests in Backdrop work a little bit differently than they do in Drupal just because we have a tests.info file instead of a files registry. And so there's a little bit of changing you need to do in order to get your tests working in Backdrop instead of in Drupal. And I thought that might be something that we could create a video on. I'm not sure how to make that video short. Probably just have to cut out the test running part of it. Because if you run all the tests locally, they get a little slow. But maybe I thought that might be something that would be useful for people reporting modules as well to see the differences between the test system. And as we get more ideas about things that people might want to see, we can create more videos. I would love to see them all be like 5 minutes or less little snippets. So that they would be easily tweetable and catch people's attention. But there's obviously room for much longer sort of training style videos too, rather than just kind of showing off features. Anything else anyone wants to see, let us know somehow. Twitter or Gitter or GitHub, probably the best ways. And we'll try and get those on the radar too. I've been trying to do a better job about scheduling tweets. I don't necessarily know the kinds of all the things that we should be tweeting about. Sometimes I miss things. So definitely if you're watching Twitter and looking for some specific information, let us know. I do have a list in issue number 439 on the backdropcms.org queue about the kinds of things that we should be tweeting. And if there are things that we aren't tweeting that we should be tweeting about, we can add them to that list. And if we're tweeting too much about things that are on that list, that's also good to know. I try and do one tweet every week about Lando and or DDev. And I know last week we got some feedback via Twitter. People were like, are these people sponsoring you? And I was like, well, no. But maybe does that mean I'm tweeting too much about them? I'm like, no. So just getting feedback like that about, should we make that happen less often would be good. Or more often. Whatever the kids want on Twitter, we'll put on Twitter. Mentions. So anytime there's an article or a podcast or a video that somebody creates about Backdrop on the web, we try and put a link to it, if we know about it, on backdropcms.org in the mentions section. So recently, there were a couple of podcasts. There was a whole series of podcasts on hacking culture about Backdrop. Tom, I listened to yours. It was great. Brian had one. I did one last week. I think all of them are in the mentions section on backdropcms.org. Anything else like that that's going on in the Drupal world or the Backdrop world where people are talking about Backdrop? If we don't know about it, let us know. I think anyone with a backdropcms.org account can create a mention as well. So if you wrote your own blog post and you want to promote it by putting a link to it on the website, you should be able to do that. Again, moderated content will get published in a week or less. But yeah, we're also open to ideas about where we can be promoting Backdrop that isn't backdropcms.org. Like obviously everyone has a personal blog, that's great. But if there's something that has more reach where you would love to see like Backdrop featured in CMS versus CMS or something like that, we can try and figure out how to get on there. We just don't, if we aren't actively pursuing it, we probably don't know it exists. All right, events. A couple weeks ago was San Diego Drupal Camp, also lovingly known as Sand Camp, that we had a pretty big Backdrop footprint there. There were several folks who were super interested or already working on Backdrop there. There were two sessions. There was the normal intro to Backdrop session, and then we also did, Zakiya and I did a session that we did at the San Francisco user group, I don't know, 6 months or so ago. We updated it and did it again. That was Backdrop versus Drupal 8, where we went through a bullet list of kind of high-level topics and, how does Drupal 8 solve this problem? How does Backdrop solve this problem? Are there differences? Are there similarities? Which one would you like better? And we had the audience sort of keep track of which CMS is right for them by, saying, oh, I like Backdrop better for that, or I like Drupal better for that. And it went pretty well. The first time we did it, it took a little longer than it wouldn't have fit in the 1 hour slot. But when we did it at Sandcamp, we did manage to control our enthusiasm and kept it to the right amount of time, which was great. It had pretty good feedback. It was well attended. I hope people got a lot out of it. It was really fun to present, and I really like working with Zakiya. So hopefully we'll get to do that again at some point in the future. I don't think any of the sessions there were recorded, so if you weren't there in person, you don't get to see it. Sorry about that. I would love to get some of the other people who are at Drupal at Sandcamp, Drupal Camp San Diego, to do a write-up of what it meant for them to have Backdrop at that event. We'll see if we can get that to happen. That would also be something great to have on a blog post. And then the next event, which is not tomorrow, well, it starts tomorrow and Saturday at Stanford University, there's a Drupal event. Last year when we attended, I noticed that their Drupal event has become more of an open source software event, also included a bunch of WordPress stuff. And so we did a session on Backdrop there a year ago. So I offered again this year to do the session on Backdrop, and it was accepted. So I think we're second slot Saturday morning. So if you're in the area and you're interested in learning about Backdrop and you want to drop in, I do believe the event is free, but I would check on their website. You'll need to register, and if it's not free, it's not very expensive. It's $20, $35, something like that. So I would highly recommend Drupal Camp Stanford. It's organized by great people. It's a beautiful campus. Lots of good reasons to go there. not working on any advertising right now or swag. But if anyone is interested in our overall content strategy, we do have a map of things that we would like to create at issue number 349 in the backdrop cms.org issue queue on GitHub. So if you're interested in helping us create content, that's a good place to go to see what kinds of content we would like to have created. Obviously, if you feel like there's something missing and you want to create that content, please do. No, we're not limited to what's in the map. That was just kind of an idea of help us kind of focus on, like, I don't know what to do. What should I do? Here's a list. So if you do know what to do, you don't need the list. Okay, that's all I have for this week's meeting. Tom, thank you for joining. Do you have anything that's not on the agenda you'd like to talk about?
Not necessarily. That you were talking about on the blog post, so anybody can write a blog post and they get approved.
I think so.
If you need help with approving some of those, or another eyeball to take a look at, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay. Let's see. Blog post. So the only one we have right now that's not published is Gregory's. So if you want to take a look at that, I think you have editor access on the website.
I do. Are there notifications that come out when something?
We haven't set up notifications on this site. We do have notifications on the forum site, so we can set them up. We just haven't.
Okay. Other than that, I'm good.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks for coming to today's meeting. It's good to see you back involved in Backdrop again after your little break. We will have another meeting in 15 minutes to talk about development tasks for Backdrop CMS. And if you're not there, see you on Gitter.
All right. Sounds good.